It started off like one of those rare evenings where I felt like I could finally breathe. Work had let me go early, which practically never happened, and instead of texting Emily like I normally would, I figured I'd surprise her. I hadn't done that in a long time. I used to, back when we still tried. Back when she'd light up if I showed up with her favorite pastries or left her notes tucked in the fridge. Back before silence stretched longer than conversation. So I made a decision. I stopped by that little French restaurant tucked between the florist and the antique bookstore, the one she kept meaning to take her mom to, made a reservation for 2. Table by the window, 7:30. The hostess smiled when I said it was a surprise date for my wife. Said something like, "We love that." I smiled too, but it felt hollow, like I was trying too hard to believe my own plan would matter. Then I walked a few blocks downtown and picked up a box of truffle chocolates, her favorite kind. The ones filled with sea salt and hazelnut cream. They were stupid expensive, but I didn't care. I wanted to remind her of us. Remind myself. On the way back to the car, I swung by a wine shop and picked out a bottle of red I'd usually walk past. Bordeaux. Not cheap. Not for me either. I'm more of a beer guy when I drink it all, but she loved it. Said it helped her unwind. Though lately, her bottle was always half finished before I even got home. I set everything carefully on the passenger seat. The wine nestled between my gym bag and the box of chocolates like it was cradled in purpose. This wasn't an apology. This wasn't a grand gesture. Just a soft reset. Something small to shift the mood, to push us back toward something warm. And maybe I was naive for hoping that's all it would take. Our neighborhood looked the same as always. Kids' bikes in front yards, sprinklers arching over patchy grass, dogs barking in rhythm to passing trucks. But the moment I turned onto our street, something clenched in my gut like a slow vice. The bedroom light upstairs was on. That might not mean much to anyone else, but Emily never turned that overhead light on at night. She always said it was too harsh, too cold. She preferred the soft lamp on the dresser, the one with the frayed linen shade she picked up at a flea market during our honeymoon in Charleston. And then I saw it. Parked in our driveway, right beside her car, was a gray Audi. Older model. A little beat up. Dust streaked across the windshield like it had been parked under trees for a week. A pizza box sat on the passenger seat, sun-bleached and empty. I squinted, my brain scrambling to file the image into something harmless. A contractor? A delivery guy? A friend? But no one I knew drove that car. And no one, absolutely no one, had business being at our house this late in the evening with my wife home alone. My heart started pounding before my hand even touched the steering wheel. I drove past the house, slowly, continued down the block, then made a loop back through the neighborhood and parked on a side street 2 doors down. I needed to think, breathe. My mind pinged between explanations, rationalizations, denial. Maybe someone from the gym? She mentioned needing to reorganize the closet. Maybe she hired someone to help. But she would have told me, right? I sat there for a long minute, the engine ticking as it cooled. Finally, I got out, grabbed the chocolates and wine, and walked up the side of the house through the backyard. Our gate creaked a little louder than I remembered, and I winced at the sound. The back porch light was off. So were the kitchen lights. It was oddly quiet. I slid my key into the back door, slowly, carefully, and stepped inside. Everything smelled faintly like citrus cleaner and garlic. The smell of someone trying to make the house feel fresh in a hurry. The sink was empty. 2 wine glasses sat on the counter, one with a deep lipstick stain near the rim. I didn't make a sound. I set the bag down gently and made my way to the stairs. Each creak felt like a scream. At the top, the hallway was dim, lit only by the glow bleeding under the bedroom door. And it was open, just a crack. I froze just outside, heartbeat in my throat, breath shallow. Then I saw it, reflected in the mirrored sliding door of our closet across the room. 2 people, Emily, and a man. She was wearing a robe. The maroon one I got her for Christmas last year. The one she never wore. He was shirtless. They weren't touching. Not exactly. But they were too close. Their bodies angled inward. She was standing in front of him, her hands adjusting something near his collarbone. A chain. Maybe? A necklace? He had a faint tan line where a shirt collar usually sat. They looked comfortable. Not startled. Not like strangers. Not like business. My feet stayed rooted to the carpet. I wanted to speak, but nothing came out. Instead, I stepped forward into the doorway. I didn't knock, didn't cough, just made myself visible. He flinched first, took a full step back like I'd cracked a whip. Eyes wide, hand going reflexively to his chest like he was expecting a punch. Emily didn't flinch. She turned, blinked once, and offered me a level gaze. Not warm, not ashamed. Just blank. "Oh," she said, her voice light. "You're home early." The air between us could have shattered. "I was going to surprise you," I said, more to myself than to her. She pulled her robe closed slightly, not in a rush, just casual. "This is Theo. He's an interior designer. We were discussing closet shelving ideas." I stared at her, then at him. "Theo." He gave me the most awkward smile I've ever seen on a man. "Closet shelving?" I repeated. She nodded, still calm. "Yes. I told you I was thinking of redoing the storage space." He was just showing me a layout. "At 7 p.m., I said, eyeing the wine glasses on the nightstand. "With wine. And no shirt." Theo cleared his throat and took a step back. "It got warm. Upstairs light, you know. I spilled something on my shirt earlier. It's drying downstairs." Emily didn't react. Just crossed her arms loosely and leaned against the dresser like she'd rehearsed this. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the bottle of wine I brought against the wall and watch it explode. I wanted to ask Theo if he understood he'd walked into another man's marriage. I wanted to ask Emily why she looked so calm, so bored. But I didn't do any of that. I nodded. "Got it," I said quietly. "Shelving." She tilted her head like she was waiting for me to drop it. Instead, I walked out, down the hall, back into the kitchen. I grabbed my keys off the counter and stepped into the night without another word. As I closed the door behind me, I could still hear nothing. No apology. No explanation. No footsteps chasing after me. Just silence. I didn't go home that night. I drove. Not with a destination in mind, but with a need to escape the house, the silence, the wine glasses. I ended up parked in front of my office building around midnight. Sat there for a long time in the dark, the soft glow from the street lamp casting shadows across the dash. The chocolates had melted. The wine had rolled to the floorboard. And my thoughts were loud. I kept replaying what I saw. Not just the moment in the bedroom, but her expression. Calm, measured, like she was inconvenienced, not caught. Like I was the one intruding on something I didn't understand. I spent the night in my office. Didn't sleep. Just laid back on the couch, staring at the ceiling tiles and listening to the hum of the vending machines down the hall. Around 4 in the morning, it started to make sense. Not the situation, but the buildup. The little signs I had shoved into the closet of my brain. The ones I labeled as "don't overthink" and "just stress" and "you're being paranoid." Now they were all pushing their way out at once, screaming for attention. The late nights. That was the first one. Emily had always been a homebody. Someone who preferred red wine and a rom-com over going out. But slowly, subtly, that changed. She started staying out longer. First with clients, then with girls from yoga, then for me time. I'd ask when she'd be home and she'd say, "Not late," which eventually meant midnight or later. I stopped waiting up after a while. She started going to a new salon across town. Said the stylist understood her texture better. But I never saw a change. Her hair stayed the same. Nails too. Nothing looked different. Once, I asked if it was worth the drive and she snapped, "You don't notice anything I do? So what's the point?" Her phone habits changed next. She used to leave it charging on the nightstand, sometimes playing meditation tracks while we fell asleep. But now it was always face down, sometimes silenced, sometimes even taken into the bathroom when she showered, which she never used to do. Once, I picked it up by reflex, thinking it was mine, and she nearly ripped it out of my hand before I could say sorry. I told myself I was being insecure. that phones are private, and I shouldn't read into it. But I knew. Deep down, I knew. There were also names in her contacts I didn't recognize. Celine, coworker. Caught my eye one day while she was texting on the couch. She laughed at something, said, "Celine is hilarious," then changed the subject. Thing is, I knew all her coworkers. We'd had them over. Been to parties with them. There was no Celine. Then came the receipts. Literally on the credit card statement. I didn't go snooping. I was just checking our monthly charges, something I always did. But over the past few months, there were frequent charges from places she never mentioned. Coffee shops across town. A flower shop we'd never used. A boutique hotel bar, twice in 1 week. When I asked her about one, she said, "Oh, that must have been with Jenna," and walked away before I could ask more. One night, I found a small blue gift box tucked in her sock drawer. Inside was a silver bracelet. Not expensive, but nice. Engraved. Courage. It wasn't my taste, I wouldn't have picked it. And she never wore it. I asked about it a week later, and she said she bought it on a whim but didn't like how it fit. I let it go. I always let it go. There were other changes too. Her perfume. She used to wear light, floral stuff. Now it was musky, darker. Something you'd wear at night, not to a meeting. I remember asking her once, "New scent?" And she shrugged, said, "Just something I picked up at the mall." But I remember the bottle. It was expensive, imported, not something she'd buy without talking about it. Then there was the trip. Our anniversary was in March. I suggested a cabin getaway in Vermont. Just a weekend. Quiet. She said work was too hectic. I dropped it. A week later, she told me she had to attend a conference. Coincidentally, the same weekend I'd suggested. She packed light, left early, came back late. I asked how it went. She said, "Fine. Nothing exciting." And then disappeared into the bathroom for an hour. She brought me back a men's grooming kit. Beard oil, cologne, soap. Said she found it at a boutique near the hotel. When I thanked her, she smiled too quickly and went to do laundry. That smile. That was another thing. It used to reach her eyes. Now it was just a reflex. And the way she touched me? Different. She used to reach for my hand during movies. Brush my arm as she passed. Little things. Subtle, soft. Gone. When I leaned in for a kiss, sometimes she'd hesitate. Or worse, pull back like she remembered something she didn't want to. And still, I told myself it was stress. Work. Maybe hormones. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. I took the blame and wore it like armor, thinking it would protect us. But the truth is, I chose to ignore it. I didn't want to believe that she could lie to me, that she could become someone I didn't recognize. So I let myself fall into the rhythm of denial. Let the warning signs pass like mile markers. And when the collision came, when I stood in that doorway watching her adjust a necklace around a shirtless man, I wasn't surprised. Not really. Just devastated. It was the weight of every ignored moment collapsing at once. Every lie dressed as casual conversation. Every shrug that disguised a secret. It all landed on me with the subtlety of a freight train. That morning, after showering at the office gym, I went home. She was in the kitchen, dressed, pretending to scroll through recipes on her tablet. There was fresh coffee. The smell was sickening. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked without looking up. "No," I said. She nodded like she didn't expect me to. I sat at the counter, looked at her, really looked. She wore a soft pink blouse. Her hair was pulled back, neat, composed. She looked like the same woman I married. But something behind her eyes was gone. "I think I need some space," I said, careful not to sound angry. She blinked. "From me? From this? From pretending everything's okay?" She didn't argue, just said, "All right, do what you need to do." No fight, no defense, just quiet agreement. That was the moment I realized she didn't care if I believed her. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was just trying to control how messy the unraveling got. That night, I moved into the office, set up a sleeping bag on the couch and told work I was dealing with home repairs. It wasn't a lie, not really. Something was broken. I just hadn't figured out how to fix it, or if I even should. In the quiet, I started noticing how much I'd been tolerating, how much I'd let slip, how little of my own life actually belonged to me anymore. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how early it had started, how long she'd been choosing someone else and leaving breadcrumbs for me to find. And I had walked past every one of them, eyes wide open. I didn't wake up one morning and decide to spy on my wife. It happened slowly, inch by inch, after the lies outpaced the logic. I think I still wanted to believe her at first, that maybe I had just seen something I wasn't meant to see, misunderstood a weird moment, stumbled onto a half-truth that didn't tell the full story. But that belief was shrinking by the hour, shrinking beneath her indifference, beneath the sterile explanations that seemed pre-written, beneath the way she looked at me like I was inconvenient now. It wasn't anger that pushed me over the edge. It was clarity, cold, cruel clarity. The laptop was an old one, hers from 2 upgrades ago. I found it in the hall closet, buried under throw pillows and a pile of winter scarves. It hadn't been touched in months. I only remembered it because she once complained the battery was sh*T. But that model had automatic sync enabled by default, and I had a hunch. I plugged it in and waited. The screen blinked to life slowly, the way neglected things do when they're called back into service. Her profile loaded. No password. That almost made me laugh. She'd hidden the truth in plain sight, maybe assuming I'd never bother looking in something so obvious. At first, it looked like any other personal laptop. Random saved documents, half-finished meal plans, photos from vacations long past. But the folders were labeled strangely. One was just a series of dates. Another was titled Celine Docs. Remember Celine, the fake coworker from the texts? Yeah, she was there too. I opened the folder named Jasper. That's when it all shattered. There were photos, dozens of them, taken over months, maybe more. Emily smiling on balconies I didn't recognize. A mountain view that looked like Colorado or maybe northern Utah, someplace we'd never been together. A table set for 2 in what looked like a high-end hotel suite. Blue napkins, red wine, dim lights. In one photo, she sat on a lounge chair, legs draped over the lap of a man I instantly recognized. Theo. Same guy from our bedroom mirror. In that photo, he was wearing the same chain she'd adjusted around his neck in our room. They weren't kissing. They didn't have to. The int* Macy radiated through the screen. His hand was resting gently on her thigh. Hers cupped the side of his face. The timestamp said it was taken 5 weeks ago. The same weekend she claimed to be in upstate meetings. I kept scrolling. Another hotel room. Navy blue sheets. Wine glasses half full. Her robe, the one I bought her, thrown carelessly over a chair. And then a selfie. Both of them grinning, skin flushed, cheeks pressed close. The caption, "Perfect weekend." No emojis. Just 2 words. Casual. Bold. Then came the messages. They weren't steamy. Not vulgar. But somehow that made it worse. The language was int*, mate in its simplicity. I hate Mondays when they start without you. I still smell your shampoo on my pillow. Can we go back to that cabin in September? I checked the rates. And then the one that punched a hole through my chest. He suspects nothing. I feel awful, but not enough to stop. He suspects nothing. That line stuck in my head like static. Not because it was true, because it had been true. Because I had let it be true. Because I had trusted her through all of it. And because she had taken that trust and used it like a shield while she built a parallel life with another man. I closed the messages and sat back, hands shaking. Not from rage. From the sheer weight of it. It was all there, undeniable, irrefutable. The proof I had spent months gaslighting myself for not finding. And now it stared me in the face with the smugness of a secret that thought it would never be caught. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just sat there, staring at the screen, thinking about how much time I'd lost. How many nights I'd gone to sleep thinking she was just tired or stressed. How many times I had second-guessed myself into silence while she lied to my face. I could have smashed the laptop. Instead, I grabbed a flash drive from my desk drawer and copied everything. Photos, messages, timestamps. I created a folder titled Evidence in all caps, because part of me couldn't believe I was even doing this. I wasn't just hurt. I was preparing for war. And then I made a phone call. 10 years ago, when we first got engaged, we saw a lawyer. Not because we didn't love each other, but because we were practical. Emily had inherited money from her grandfather, and I had just bought the house with a down payment I'd saved since college. The prenup was straightforward. If either of us cheated, the other retained all marital assets and property. It was mutual, clean. Neither of us thought we'd ever use it. The lawyer still practiced across town. She remembered me. Her name was Dana. I didn't explain much over the phone. Just said I had questions about an old document. She told me to bring it by and we could review. I printed everything. Photos, credit card records, hotel receipts I had since pulled from our joint statements. Then I drove in silence. Dana met me with a nod. Didn't ask about the bags under my eyes or the cold way I spoke. She was efficient, flipping through the paperwork like she'd done this 1,000 times. When she got to the photo of Emily on that mountain terrace, she paused, then kept going. "You were smart to document this," she said. "Wasn't hard," I replied. She didn't try to hide it. We went through the prenup line by line. It hadn't changed since the day we signed it, witnessed and notarized with champagne in hand. It stated clearly that infidelity would void Emily's claims to any shared marital assets, including the house, retirement funds, savings, and personal investments. The only exception was a 30-day grace period to vacate, during which she'd be allowed to collect her belongings. Dana looked at me and gave the smallest nod. "You're covered. It's airtight." That's when the reality sank in. Not just that Emily had cheated, but that I was done. The marriage, our marriage, wasn't salvageable. It wasn't in trouble or on pause. It was over. She had ended it the moment she called me he in a message meant for someone else. The only thing left was to protect myself from the wreckage. I left Dana's office with a folder under one arm and a new spine in my chest. Not anger, not revenge, just clarity. A sense that I had spent too long walking barefoot through glass, hoping it would eventually feel like carpet. That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove to the lake. We used to picnic there years ago, before the long silences and the Celines, before the cold side of the bed became a wall between us. I sat on a bench overlooking the water and watched the sun bleed orange across the horizon. A man walked by with his daughter on his shoulders. She was giggling. He was humming. I remember thinking, I want that someday. And then I thought, I'll never have it with her. By the time I got back to the house, it was dark. Emily was watching TV like nothing had changed. I didn't speak, didn't look at her, just walked upstairs, locked the door behind me, and opened a new email draft addressed to Dana. Subject line: begin divorce proceedings. We were two different people when we signed it. Younger, hopeful, naive in that sweet kind of way. Emily had tucked her arm around mine in the law office waiting room, swinging her crossed leg gently like the idea of a prenup was almost romantic. "Just a formality," she said. "Like a safety net we'll never need." I remember laughing and saying, "Let's hope it gathers dust." Didn't. A decade later, I sat at my desk with the same contract open, its black and white text now functioning more like a scalpel than a net. There it was, in unambiguous language. In the event of infidelity by either party, the injured spouse retains full rights to the primary residence, joint savings, and all non-marital investments acquired during the marriage. No interpretation. No loopholes. We had both signed it in ink thick enough to outlast every promise that followed. And I had the proof now. Digital. Time-stamped. Visual. All of it. The mountain terrace. The hotel room. The texts. The hand on her thigh. The wine-soaked weekend she spent in a stranger's arms while I reorganized the garage and sent her a goodnight photo of our dog asleep on the couch. When I handed the flash drive to Dana, she didn't ask for backstory. She simply placed it into a sleek silver reader and waited. On screen, images flipped past, each one sharper than the last. She paused at the message where Emily said, "He suspects nothing." I feel awful, but not enough to stop. Dana sighed. "That'll do. It wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about reclaiming control. About taking back the pieces of myself that had been slowly eroded by whispered lies and vanishing explanations. We met twice that week. Quiet meetings. No drama. Dana laid out the steps like a checklist. First, a formal breach of agreement notice. Then, an intent to divorce filed with the county. Finally, a notification letter outlining the invocation of the prenup clause, removing Emily's rights to the home, the accounts, the retirement fund we'd built together. I kept nodding, kept taking notes, kept my face neutral. The only time I broke composure was when Dana slid a small envelope across the table. "Your next move is to deliver this," she said. Formally. The envelope was matte white with her firm seal stamped in gold. I held it like it might burn through my fingers. And yet, it didn't. It was lighter than I expected. Like the weight had transferred elsewhere. When I got home, Emily was seated at the dining table with a glass of wine. Chardonnay this time. Not her usual red. She was wearing a chunky sweater and no makeup. She looked tired, unbothered, as if everything that had unfolded over the past few days existed in another room she didn't plan to enter. She didn't speak when I walked in. Just looked up, registered me, then went back to her tablet. I set the envelope on the table in front of her. She blinked. "What's this?" "You'll want to read it." She opened it slowly. Her fingers trembled. Not a lot, but enough for me to notice. The letter was only a few pages, but by the time she reached the second one, her face had lost all color. "This is from your lawyer?" she asked. I nodded. "The same one who wrote our prenup." She swallowed. Hard. "So you're actually doing this? There's nothing left to do but this." She stared at the papers like they might rewrite themselves. "So that's it? Just mail, lawyers, documents? You made the rest irrelevant." Her jaw flexed. A twitch of something, regret, maybe? Anger? Couldn't tell. "You're throwing away 10 years. "No," I said quietly. "You threw them away the moment you started building a life somewhere else." That's when it hit her. Not just that I knew, but that I had proof. She opened her mouth as if to ask how much, but stopped. She must have known I wouldn't move this fast unless I had it all. I saw the moment her defiance collapsed into resignation. "When do I have to be out?" she asked, barely above a whisper. 30 days, I replied. "It's in the agreement." She nodded once. "And I get?" "Whatever you came in with. Your car, your clothes, your personal items. That's it. No support." "Nope." A long silence stretched across the table like a moat. I stood there watching her read the fine print, the reality of her choices finally sinking in like ink into cloth. There was no shouting, no crying, no dramatic pleas for forgiveness. Just silence. And it was loud. Later that night, I heard drawers opening upstairs, a suitcase unzipping, the closet shifting. She had started packing already. I slept in the guest room, same as the past few nights. She didn't knock, didn't text. For the first time in months, I slept straight through. The following day, she asked if she could stay at her sister's house until she figured out next steps. I nodded. I didn't ask which sister. Didn't care. As long as she understood that the front door would lock behind her, and that this time she wasn't coming back. Within 48 hours, her closet was half empty. Makeup gone from the bathroom. Jewelry tray cleared. Her perfume, once a permanent fixture on the dresser, was finally missing. The house smelled different. Cleaner, somehow. Still, I hadn't realized how much space her presence had taken up until it started disappearing one drawer at a time. Dana emailed me a day later. "Documents filed. Court date will be assigned shortly. You are fully protected per the terms." Protected. It didn't feel like protection. It felt like preservation. Like closing a vault before the flames could reach the walls. I didn't tell anyone yet. Not friends. Not family. Not even my boss. The idea of explaining it all felt exhausting. This wasn't a story I wanted to relive in front of sympathetic eyes and empty condolences. This was a quiet war I had already survived. The only thing left now was cleanup. When the certified letter arrived confirming the court hearing, I didn't flinch. I simply pinned it to the corkboard above my desk, next to the photo of me and my brother hiking Yellowstone, and a concert ticket stub from the year we first met. The photo with Emily that used to sit there? Gone. Replaced by an empty frame for now. Sometimes people tell you that heartbreak is loud, but they're wrong. The real ending doesn't come with fireworks or slamming doors. It comes in quiet mail and unsigned paperwork. It comes in watching your wife fold sweaters into a suitcase she never packed to see you. It comes in calm voices and phrases like, per the agreement. It comes in the way you stop saying we and start thinking only in me. And just like that, the contract we signed in love became the only thing shielding me from the weight of her betrayal. She left the house on a Thursday. No hug, no final speech, just a half-lidded look, a mumbled goodbye, and the soft click of the door. And I didn't follow. She was gone for 5 days. First, it was quiet. Not peaceful, but hollow. Like I'd moved into a hotel room designed to resemble my home. I kept finding ghost footprints in the carpet, forgotten earrings in the bathroom drawer, a sticky note on the fridge that read, "Don't forget almond milk," in her handwriting. It had probably been there for months, but now it felt like a relic. I worked longer hours, not because I had to, but because the silence at home felt aggressive. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes. No one was waiting on the other end. I made dinners for one, always too much food, and always threw the rest out. I tried watching the shows we used to binge, but her commentary echoed in my head. "He's totally gonna cheat," she used to say during every dramatic scene, which I now realized was a kind of prophecy. Then, on day 6, she came back. I pulled into the driveway after a late meeting, and there it was, her car, parked like nothing had changed. No warning, no heads up, just there. I paused, engine running, wondering if I should back out and come back later. But I didn't. IK** led the ignition and stepped inside. She was in the kitchen cooking. The lights were dimmed, soft jazz playing through the Bluetooth speaker. She wore the green dress I once told her was my favorite, the one she hadn't worn in years. Her hair was curled. She looked up when I entered and smiled like it was 2015 and none of this had ever happened. "Hey, stranger," she said, as if she hadn't burned our marriage to the ground. "I made dinner." I stared at her. No expression. No words. She poured me a glass of wine. Red this time, back to the old favorite, and slid a plate across the island. "Roasted chicken. Your style. Lemon and rosemary," she said, sitting across from me. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I just thought, maybe we could talk. Like adults." "After breaking the contract you signed in front of a lawyer?" I replied. "After lying to my face? After 5 months of sneaking around behind my back?" She winced but recovered quickly. "You don't have to be so cruel." "No," I said, my voice sharp. "But I do have to be clear." She set her fork down, folded her hands. "Look, I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. I'm not denying it. But this doesn't have to be the end. We've built a life, Ryan. You can't just throw that away over one mistake." "One mistake?" I asked. "You mean the one mistake that happened multiple times across cities, across weekends, in hotel rooms, while telling me you were working late?" "I wasn't thinking straight," she said, her voice rising. "I was lost. I felt like we were distant. You were always working. I didn't know how to reach you anymore." I leaned back in my chair, stunned by the audacity of her rewrite. "So instead of telling me that you decided to build a second life with someone else, that's how you deal with distance?" "I didn't mean for it to go that far." "It didn't just go that far," I snapped. "You led it there. You drove the car. You picked the route. You booked the rooms and sent the texts. And now you're here playing house like we can just skip the part where you tore this place apart." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move. I didn't feel sympathy. I felt tired, drained. The kind of exhaustion that settles in your bones and makes you forget what rest even feels like. She stood up and walked over, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss us. I've been seeing a therapist. I've been journaling. I'm working on myself. You don't have to forgive me right now, but can you just give me a chance? I stood, not violently, but with intent. Her hand fell away. No, I said simply. She froze, like she hadn't considered that possibility. Like she had built a script in her head and I'd just broken character. I've already filed, I said. You had 30 days. You used 6 to try and replay nostalgia. I'm not interested. Her eyes narrowed. You're really doing this? I nodded. I already did it. That was the moment her act cracked. You're unbelievable, she snapped. You think you're perfect? You think you never made me feel alone? There's a difference between feeling lonely and being dishonest. I didn't sleep with half the city, Ryan. No, I said. You just picked one and made him a part-time spouse. Her voice shifted from pleading to pointed. You always think you're so morally superior, that your silence makes you right. You weren't even present for half of our marriage. You think gifts and dinners make up for you checking out emotionally? I crossed my arms. And yet, you could have said any of that before you found someone to hide it with. Silence again. Then she did what people do when logic fails. She shifted to volume. I gave you my best years, and now you want to discard me like trash because I made a mistake? I pointed toward the hallway. Pack what's yours and leave by Sunday. If not, the sheriff will help you on Monday. Her face twisted. You're really enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me fall apart. No, I said, but I am enjoying not being lied to anymore. That night, she stormed out, slamming the front door so hard the windows shook. But she came back 2 hours later, like some part of her believed I'd soften. She walked past me, didn't say a word, slept in the guest room. I locked my bedroom door. The following days were strange. She moved around the house like a ghost. Cooked, cleaned, tried to repair a normal that was long past saving. She wore my favorite sweaters. Left on music I used to play during dinner. One morning she even set the table for 2 and made pancakes. I didn't sit. When charm failed, she turned to guilt. You're punishing me, she said. You want me to suffer. No, I answered. I just want you gone. Then came manipulation. You think you're the victim, she spat. You think you're blameless? You don't even know what a good husband is. I didn't respond. She shouted, slammed doors, then cried.